sectarian pastimes of Srila Prabhupada and Prabhu's association with Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. So this is not a Bhagavad Gita class. It is not a Bhagavatam class. It is just an intimate katha on Prabhupada, our great acharya, whose personal presence I had the great fortune of having. I see the devotees in Prabhupada's time as being three types. The first type is those devotees who were always with Prabhupada, secretary, very intimately connected and moving Prabhupada's desires through the whole movement. I was not that tier, like a Tamal Krishna Goswami, or a Satsvarup Das Goswami, or Rupanuga Prabhu, or any of these. These early devotees, they really were very constant involvement with Prabhupada. Then there's the second tier, where devotees, disciples, had the good fortune of being around Prabhupada's room with talks and lectures, morning walks, and just generally a lot of experience being around Prabhupada. That I'm in the second tier. The third tier is some disciples hardly saw Prabhupada. There are actually some devotees, disciples, who hardly even saw Prabhupada. Ones that came later, they were initiated by the mail, through the mail, and so on. So I consider myself very fortunate to be in the second tier, because I got to see a lot, and it was my great good fortune. My memories of Prabhupada are extremely vivid, and but I won't give you all the nuanced vividness of it, because it will take then 5-7 hours for 7 days. So we only have a few minutes. So, well, I'd like to tell you about an experience I had early on with the first Mayapur festival. There were no Mayapur festivals, the annual until 1974. So I went. Why wouldn't I go? This is the first Mayapur festival. Devotees all over the world would be coming. And it was fascinating because devotees were not just Americans. They were Russians. They were French. They were German. They were Japanese. It was really strange. I expected Indian. Yeah, that I expect. But all these others, very strange, And to hear them chanting the Maha Mantra with their different accents. One time I just had to laugh because the French, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. It's very strange. Because their R's are guttural. Very strange. So, anyway, I was delighted. Anyway, so we all get there on the first day. And all that was there was the Chandrodaya Mandir. The 4-story building. That's all that was there. And it was barely there. It was still under construction. The 4 floors were there, but I was staying on the 4th floor. That's where I met Ravindra Swarup. You may have heard of Ravindra Swarup, a scholarly devotee. And we both situated our sleeping bags on a cement dust pile, because it was under construction. Almost like where Madhu Panditji's Radha Damodar project. We were very much breathing cement dust for the last 3 days. Yeah. He gave me an option. He said, you can stay over at the guest house, in Outer Vrindavan, where the big temple is going to be, right? He said, or you can stay here in my room with me and breathe cement dust all night. I said, if you're breathing cement dust, then I will breathe cement dust. So we stayed in his room, and we had wonderful sharing. I mean, I'd always heard of him, and he had heard of me, but somehow it all came together in the last few days. So wonderful, wonderful. What a wonderful devotee this is. Really, I can't believe all that he's doing. After he was telling me some of the things, I said, stop, I can't even comprehend what you've told me. It's just not within my capacity to comprehend what this one devotee is doing. Anyway. But we're all here because of one person. Isn't that amazing? Because of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, would I want to get to know you if it weren't for Srila Prabhupada? Absolutely not. Why would I want to get to know him? Huh? Well, okay, maybe I would get to know him, but what about you? No. I'm playing around, but seriously, we're all here because of Prabhupada. Isn't that amazing? It's just an amazing thing to think about. So then I can understand Madhu Pandit's potency. You see? Prabhupada into Madhu Pandit, right? So there we are in the Chandrodaya Mandir, and someone comes through and asks all the devotees if there are any volunteers to help. So, or you could go on parikrama. So I said, I need a little humbling. Let me offer some help, seva. So I raised my hand. So did my wife, who was with the ladies. So she was put in the kitchen, not a normal kitchen. It was an outdoor tent. Later to learn from her that there were little Bengali boys smashing potatoes on the ground with worms crawling in. She came back frantically and said, we cannot eat this prasadam. I said, well, if it's prasadam, we can eat it. She said, you cannot offer this to the deities. She told me what it was about. So all we had were bananas and dab juice for 2 weeks. And that was very good because everybody got sick. And Prabhupada was furious at Bhavananda, who was arranging the food. We didn't get sick. Consequently, what this did, it sounds terrible, but I'm going to say it because you won't tell anyone else. Wait a minute. No, I don't trust you. The good thing, it was terrible. Ravindra Swarup was out sick on his back the whole time. He could not come to class. He could not walk. He was so sick. And I couldn't tell everyone, you can't eat this, because then everyone would look at me like, what? This is prasad. How can you not? Well, you can't offer worms to the deity. So I don't know what they did to offer. I don't know what they did with it. Anyway, Prabhupada was furious. But the benefit of this was there were only about 25 devotees who showed up for Bhagavatam class. Only 25. Roughly like this. And Prabhupada asked, where is it? Where are all the devotees? And I think it was Brahmananda who said, they are very sick, Prabhupada. Why are they so sick? And he said, because the food, the meals have been not good, Anyway, he went and actually surveyed. Prabhupada went through the whole building, seeing the devotees lying there, just in agony. It's terrible. Prabhupada was furious. In any case, but that day, while the wife was looking at the tent, the food tent, whatever it is, they gave me a broom. A broom, a long stick and right. And he said, sweep the stairs. Okay, so I had to use my very bright mind to figure out how to sweep stairs. I had learned how to sweep in camp. My parents sent me to camp sometimes in the summer. And so I learned how to sweep. But it was always a flat cabin. It was not stairs. So I started sweeping the bottom step, but realized, no. That's stupid. You start at the top. Because dust doesn't go up, it lands down. This is a great one of my very best realizations in my life. Dust goes down. So therefore, you go to the top step and you sweep it all down. Now, mind you, I started at the 4th floor, and the stairs in the Chandrodya Mandir, they go part of the way down, there's a landing, and then they go the next way to the next floor. That's important information. So I'm sweeping down from the 4th floor landing, the 3rd floor landing, the 2nd floor, and then I'm on the landing between the 2nd floor and the 1st floor. Prabhupada is staying on the 2nd floor. By the time I'm at the landing between the 2 floors, there's a huge amount of grit, dust, building materials, And suddenly, I'm standing there on the landing with the broom, trying to gather all the stuff. Someone comes running to the top of the 2nd floor there and says, "Prabhupada is coming," and then runs away. And I said, "What? Wait. What do you mean Prabhupada's coming? What does that mean? I mean, here?" And I'm looking at the landing, and I'm thinking maybe I should just run away. I mean, how am I going to explain this to Prabhupada? Anyway, all this is going on in my head very rapidly. And then, of course, you saw the sannyasi dandas going up and down, And then Prabhupada is in the middle. And he's up there at the top of the stairs. And he's coming down the stairs. And I'm going like this with the broom, and like a danda. The broom was my danda. That may be the closest I ever get to a danda. However, it's an ekadanda. That is the problem. And I'm not an Advaitin. Hinduism, but you don't know what it is. He says, "Yes, Prabhupada, I have been teaching Hinduism for years, but I have no idea what it is." Prabhupada's looking at Bhakti Swarup Damodar. And Prabhupada says, he does it several times. Prabhupada inquires how you can teach something that you don't know. He said, "It's just I've been studying. It's very complex. I've been studying and teaching so many years. I still do not know what is this Hinduism." This did not sit well with Prabhupada. I've never seen Prabhupada like this. What do you hear with it? So here's our PhD, points to Swarup Damodar. I did not have my PhD at that time. But Swarup Damodar, what do you think of this? Wait a minute, what did Swarup Damodar say? He said something so... what was it? Prabhupada, he is bogus. You could feel the room getting very tense. Because Swarup Damodar used to pronounce Prabhupada's name, Prabhupada. I don't know, the Manipuri accent or whatever, I don't know. I was very good friends with Swarup Damodar for the longest time. Anyway, and so he said, "Prabhupada, he is bogus." And I'm kind of like looking around and thinking, what is going to happen now? And so Prabhupada said, "So here, you hear our PhD is saying this is bogus." And then he persists. Yadav persists. what Prabhupada was reacting to, at least in my interpretation, was that the ego in this man was so thick that he persisted. Even after that, he said, I am a professor, but I am studying this Hinduism, but I do not know what is this Hinduism. And Prabhupada became livid. I had never seen Prabhupada this angry ever. But his lips were actually quivering. He was so furious that he would persist and persist and persist and persist. And he said to Brahmananda, he said, remove them. This was just so, all of us in the room just kind of felt like melting. I can't recall anyone ever explaining Prabhupada being this angry. I've not heard any of the memoirs or accounts. It was scary. Honestly, it was very, very scary. And I was just sitting right here. And when the spiritual master is this furious, this is, there might as well be lightning bolts coming into the room. And after he left, Prabhupada turned to Ravindra and said, why did you invite him? And Ravindra said something very stupid in response, which made me even want to just jump out the window. He said, Prabhupada, I thought you could do something with him. I'm thinking in my head, Ravindra, he just did something with him. That's what he did. That's what he did with him. He threw him out because his ego was so thick he couldn't appreciate what he was sitting in front of. So, what that taught me was the importance of gauging receptivity on the part of someone with whom you're sharing Krishna Bhakti. Don't share too much. If they are not receptive, if there's blockage there, you know what I'm saying? To be sensitive to the whole thing. Started with Prabhupada inquiry, just a simple inquiry. So, what do you teach? That's all Prabhupada asked. And just from there, the ego just sprouted into this big mountain of ego that was impenetrable. So do not waste your time with someone you can be very polite and say, oh, it's nice to meet you. In the early days of the movement in the U.S., people of all varieties would come to the Sunday feast. They were so interesting, these Sunday feasts. The people who would show up, it's just so fascinating, right? So one time I sat down by someone and I said, so, have you been here before? And he said, no. I said, oh, well, my name is Garuda Das. Who are you? He said, I am God. I said, you are God? He said, yes. You are God? He said, yes. I have been looking for you for a very long time. I am so glad to finally meet you. I decided to go along with it, Look, if he is God, you should go along with it. And if he isn't God, then it's obviously, I'm pushing the envelope here. So either way, it works out. If he is God, no problem. I'm being respectful. And it's true. I have been looking for him for a very long time. And if he isn't, then he's acting like a complete idiot and he'll show up very quickly. People come with their preconceptions, their levels of receptivity and so on. It's up to us to try to create greater receptivity. And we always have to remember that special instruction in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What is it? Dharma stapana hetu shadur vyavahara. It's the behavior of a Vaishnava that establishes the principles of religion. Even great sages disagree on philosophy. So the way you are with someone is almost more important than what you're saying. That's the key. And I always like to advise devotees that if you have a little bit of receptivity in someone, to share with them what you love so much about Krishna Bhakti. Because love is contagious. It's contagious. I get teaching awards in the university, several teaching awards, and they ask me, why do you think you're so popular? Why are you such a successful teacher? I say, well, I really cheat on this. It's very easy. 3 things. 1, I love what I teach. I teach Bhagavad Gita in the university, and they pay me. Can you believe it? They pay me. Do any of you get paid to teach Bhagavad Gita? Here, ask him. Yeah. You get the greatest payment, the grace, Krishna Kripa. But I also get the money for, this is my job. I go in and I teach Bhagavad Gita. It's a very fortunate way to live a life. Go to work, and teach Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavata Purana. Theology of Krishna Bhakti. This is what I do when I go to the university. I only go 6 hours a week, however. That's my full-time work.
6 hours a week?
Yes. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Garuda is lazy. No, Garuda is not lazy. The rest of the time he is writing books. Yes. And they only give me 4 months off. No, you are all spoiled. You are living in beautiful ashram. You have satsanga here. No, you are the lazy one. I'm out there in the world struggling. Huh? Yeah. But teaching Bhagavad Gita. So the magic formula. I love what I teach. I love people. And I love teaching itself. Yeah. See, it went off because this is not good advice, I think. Is it good advice? I don't know. Is it? But you can all hear me, right? Can you hear me? Is it on? No. Okay. But you can all hear me. I have a booming voice. I project. So those 3 things. A love of what you teach. That's easy. Is that hard? No, I don't think so. To love teaching or sharing. Bhakti means, I know Prabhupada used this word preaching a lot. But really he was engaging a Christian word. Really, we're about teaching and sharing, which is the meaning of bhakti. Sharing. That's what we mean when we say preach. We don't mean a sort of one-way dialogue, a monologue. What is this?
It's a PA system.
Is it supposed to be? Oh, we're back. Okay. So, those 3 things. It's a winning formula. To love people. Now, loving people might be the hardest, okay? Sometimes people are a little weird. Not so easy to love, huh? But if you see Krishna residing there in their hearts, but very, very quietly. He's very, very quiet there. Because there's not much room in the heart for Krishna, but he's still there. But as devotees, we learn how to worship Krishna on the altar of other people's hearts. They don't know how to be the pujari yet. So we should worship as their pujari, worship Krishna in their hearts. So this allows for automatic affection for anybody, except my mother-in-law. I think Krishna missed that heart. I don't know. Is it possible? Maybe, he has a lot of hearts to show up in. I think maybe he missed a few, huh? No, maybe not. We know not. So the idea here is receptivity. That event where Prabhupada was so furious, I mean, this is so vivid to me. There are many other instances that I could share with you. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, almost 4:30. What to do? Prabhupada said only one thing about me. I never wanted to directly interact with Prabhupada and bother him. I just felt like I would be a bother. I'm not sure why, but I did. I just felt like I'm here simply to absorb. There were so many others, trying to get their questions, and I was not into the competition. So I just cultivated receptivity, the very thing about which I'm speaking. So when Prabhupada was a few months before leaving this planet, Satsvarup Maharaj forced me to write to Prabhupada. He forced me to write because I did not want to write and bother him. He was already bedridden and sickly, and I just finished my first master's degree at the University of Chicago, but I was on my way to Harvard. Satsvarup said, "You must tell Prabhupada what you're doing. He would be very enlivened." And I said, "Well, I want to enliven Prabhupada, but I don't want to bother him. He's trying to finish the Bhagavatam. I don't want to. Why is my news more important than his finishing the Bhagavatam?" I just couldn't imagine. Why should I stop all of you from having the Bhagavatam in the 1 minute he would be reading my letter? I thought it was just ridiculous. I'm not important. He forced me. Because we had a close friendship back in the day. He said, "If you don't write to Prabhupada, I'll never write to you again." I was very attached to getting his letter. There's no email. Remember? Letters? They don't know what letters are. There was no texting. Anyway, you don't know. The letters. So I was upset with Satsvarup for manipulating me like that, because he knew I was attached. We had a letter relationship too, So I finally said, I wrote to Prabhupada because I was missing his letters, Satsvarup's letters. It was a bad reason for writing, but whatever. So I explained to Prabhupada what I was doing. I was on my way to Harvard to establish Krishna Bhakti in the intellectual arena. And since Harvard was the best school in America, and since it's in America, it's the best school in the world, so someone's got to do this. So that would be moi. That's French for me, okay? So I wrote to Prabhupada, and I sent Prabhupada my master's thesis, which was on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, correcting scholars' misconceptions of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhupada was when he received my letter, he heard the whole letter. Satsvarup happened to be his secretary, because they shifted around, Satsvarup was right there. And I'm sure he was saying, good, now I can write to him again. Anyway, he read the letter to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, meanwhile, was sort of on his, somewhat propped up, but was going through my thesis. And after flipping through the thesis, reading some parts and so on, and hearing my letter, he said to Satsvarup, "Tell him I am pleased he is preaching on such a high level." That's the only thing, Prabhupada. That's all I need. I'm not saying I wish I had more. That's enough. I took it as he wants me to preach on such a high level, even though he said he's pleased I am preaching on such a high level. So I took his present tense into a future tense. And this is what I've been doing. Books. I even did a translation of Bhagavad Gita, which I'd like to leave here for all of you. Someone has many devotees. Some devotees have contested. Garuda Prabhu is a guru aparadi. His spiritual master has already done a Bhagavad Gita. Well, if you read an account from Pradyumna, Prabhupada said, Radhavallabha was there. Radhavallabha said to Prabhupada, so what will you translate next? He said, there's Mahabharata, there's Ramayana, there's so many Vedanta Sutra, and there's Bhagavad Gita. Everyone kind of looked around like, someone had enough nerve then to say, Prabhupada, haven't you already translated the Bhagavad Gita? He said, of course, but there can be others. I've been using Prabhupada's Gita for 25 years in the classroom. You see, they used to send me out on book distribution. Have you all heard of Siddhaputta, the scientist? He wrote several books. Anyway, Siddhaputta, in the early days, he and I were thrown in a car with a box of Macmillan Bhagavad Gitas and told to, distribute them. So I said to Siddhaputta, where do you want to go? He said, no, I don't know. Two nerds, in the car with a huge box of very big, floppy, the original Bhagavad Gitas were big, floppy, So we ended up going to a shopping center in Washington, D.C. I said, Siddhaputta, you take that end, and I'll take this end. I was the mastermind. So we'll just stay here all day until it's 5 o'clock, and then we'll go back to the temple for evening arti, enough time to shower again, right? So we both, see, it's 5 o'clock. We meet at the back of the car, and I said, how did you do? He said, it was great. I said, yeah. He said, how did you do? I said, I had a wonderful day. He said, how many books did you distribute? He said, 2. And he said, I spoke to each person for 3 hours. And they really are going to read this book. I said, same here. Same here. By the time I was done, they were in love with the Bhagavad Gita. And we were so happy. 4 Gitas in 8 hours. We came back to the temple, to the Sankirtan leader, said, how'd you do? Oh, we did great. And then we saw the expression on his face when he learned it was only 4. He said, I'm never sending you out again. I said, but you don't understand. This is quality, not quantity, obviously. No, I would never be out on book distribution again. But until I became a professor, I make all my students buy this book. And worse than 3 hours, a whole course. 3 hours now has expanded to 45 hours. I can't find that Sankirtan leader, but I wanted to let him know. I've expanded 3 hours to 45 hours of Bhagavad Gita study, and all of them buy it. Well, to learn a lot, this is really a devotee's Gita. When a devotee reads this before they know they're a devotee, it just hits them. Something hits them. But there are a lot of people that don't hear the snap. It just doesn't snap for them. And for the years, I thought to put out an academic version that would help them move into this. And that is the source of this. It's published with a very famous publisher, HarperCollins. You have HarperCollins in India. It's worldwide. And 50,000 have sold. There was a Bhakti Vikas Swami. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's very, very conservative. I never knew who he was. until a few years ago. He wrote me an email. He said, "Dear Garuda Prabhu, please, I gave a class on you, thought you'd want to hear it. Here's the link, your servant, Bhaktivedanta Swami." Give a class on me? How is that possible? There's nothing to say. Well, it turned out one of his disciples said, "You have a god brother who produced Bhagavad Gita. Isn't he a guru aparadi for doing this when Prabhupada has a Gita?" He said, "Honestly, I don't know Garuda, and I hear he's in the academic realm. Maybe it's okay." It's giving me the benefit of the doubt. So I wrote back saying, "Swami, I appreciate you gave me the benefit of the doubt, thinking that it was only for scholars. Actually, it's for devotees and scholars. There's some things in here that devotees have truly loved, and they've written to me about it." There was a website where my Gita was being criticized, and I was being criticized, and I read through it, happened to land on it somehow, and devotees were talking about how terrible this is. Later to learn that none of them had actually read it. Because one person got on there in the thread saying, "Actually, I picked up a copy, and I read through the introduction. Actually, it's pretty good." Everyone ignored it and then went on criticizing it. None of them had ever read it. Hridayananda read it, said he thought it was brilliant. I think he was exaggerating, but whatever. It has the ability to link people to this Gita. And I think you'll see why if you ever nibble away at it. But I'm going to give this as a gift to the temple, if that's all right.
Yes,
Madhu Pandit, I actually brought it from Madhu Panditji. He said, "I already have it." I said, "Well, how can I give you a gift if you already have what I was going to give you as a gift?" That was the only argument we had. It's don't buy the gift that I'm going to give you. Anyway, it was a sweet argument. So, anyway, there's so much more we could say, but I think I'm running out of time. But any quick questions or anything to clarify? You know what? I could just tell you quickly. The embarrassing. Well, you have a question? Yes.
Everything comes from God.
Yeah.
Envy, source of envy is also God.
You saying?
Envy.
Envy. Envy. Envy is not from God, but He makes it possible. Now, there's a difference between jealousy and envy. Sometimes they're conflated. If I'm jealous of you because you have nicer phone than my phone, then to get rid of that jealousy, Prabhu would just have to supply me with a phone like his. Then I'm no longer jealous. But if I'm envious, this is evil. He could give me 100 phones. Am I happy? No. What will make me happy if I'm envious of him? Say.
People ask you not to be.
Yes. I want to gain, my pleasure would be to see him without his phone. That's evil. My pleasure is his hurt. This is a very dark level of the heart. This is a heart gone bad. But that full range of freedom for the heart has to be there. Because love cannot be forced, Prabhupada says. Cannot be manipulated, coerced, threatened. I was once walking along my university, in between classes. The university, the sidewalks are crowded, So there are two young ladies who are students there, and I couldn't help but hear what they were saying. One asked the other, "Does Mike still love you?" And the other one said, "He better, or I'll kill him." That's my mother. She hates it when I tell this story. Tell her I'll call her back, okay? He better or I'll kill him. Poor Mike. If Mike says, yes, I love you, it's under duress. It's under enslavement. That's not love, if love is forced. And if he says, no, I don't love you, then he's dead. At least that's what she said. I'll kill him, right? We cannot force love. That's why Krishna sits within our hearts for thousands of years, waiting for us to turn to him. He does not force. He he embraces us with his Brahman realization, embraces us from without, from within, all around us is Virata Rupa. But as Bhagavan, he waits for us to turn to him. And what does he say? I explain this a lot in here. 1864, Sarvaguyatamam bhuya shrinu me paramang vachaha ishtosi me dhritamiti tato vakshyami te yatam. Very powerful. The greatest secret of all, please hear again. That's powerful. The greatest secret of all, please hear once again. My supreme message, me paramang vachaha, and he puts it in iti clause, quotes, ishtosi me dhritam. You are so much loved by me. But he doesn't let us know that until we're ready. That's why it's a secret. He doesn't put pressure on us. In the U.S. we have big billboards that say, Jesus loves you. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Huh? It's a guilt trip, type of thing. Jesus loves you. And the subtext is, so what the hell are you doing for Jesus? That's what they're doing. This is not our process. If you don't love Krishna, you will go to hell. Does anyone in here ever say that to anyone? There was a Christian. I was in a jewelry store, just waiting for something. I think it was a haircut, actually. And I said, are we? A lady by the name of Deborah came up and said, are you buying something for the wife today? I said, no. I'm just waiting for my haircut across the hall. She said, okay. She said, what do you do? I said, I'm a professor. She said, what do you teach? I said, I teach religion. She said, have you produced any books lately? I just come out with this book. And she said, I bet no one's going to get to heaven reading your books now, are they? I said, excuse me? I said, well, I'm sorry. What did you just say? She said, Professor, do you know what it's like to suffer? I said, I'm beginning to experience that right now. I think I am learning what that's like. She said, Jesus, and I said, okay. I said, okay, I know where you're going. Deborah, let me tell you something. Okay, and I want you to listen very clearly. I would rather go to that hell than to love a weakling God that felt he had to force me to love him. I would be happier in that hell than to be with such a God. Then I was being called for my haircut. I said, hey, Deborah, it was great talking with you. And I'm going across the hall, and she said, Professor, I said, yes? I don't feel forced to love Jesus. I said, good. But it's not beneath you to force others now, is it? Anyway, don't mess with me. I know the New Testament. I was trained in Christian theology at Harvard. Prabhupada wanted comparative studies. So she picked the wrong guy. I told her I'd rather go to her hell than to love her weakling God. Krishna does not force us. He doesn't force us. He calls us ever so sweetly with his flute. It's the most sublime vision of divinity. The most sublime. In the Gita, he's not using the flute, but it's his teachings. So the flute or the teachings, just calling us gently. I'm afraid I have to stop, yeah. I have to leave.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
In the Bhagavad Gita, is there where Krishna says that what is the reason for us coming into this material world? Is this question answered by Krishna anywhere, very clearly telling us that what is the reason for us to come into this material?
This world is here because of freedom. Love requires freedom. If we are faltering in our focus in loving Krishna, then we have an opportunity to come here. That's all. It's not a punishment. It can get bad here, but the point is that love requires freedom. Even the Vraja Gopikas are not forced. They're not forced to love Krishna. Even they got distracted. Remember the pride in the first chapter of the Rasa Panchadhyayi. Pride. It sounded like they were grateful. They stopped running around the forest of Krishna and said, you know what? We are the most fortunate women in the whole world. Krishna disappeared. It's like playing tennis, right? You hit the ball back, and you hit the ball, and you hit the ball. And then I'm thinking, wow, I'm really good at this. And then I miss the ball because I become self-conscious. That's the beginning. That's the very beginning. The self-conscious. Moving out of the zone of lila, of rasa. This is when we falter. And then the rest, depends on what happens. But love cannot exist without this full range of freedom. It cannot. That is why there are horrible things that happen in this world. Horrible things. Truly treacherous and horrible things. Well, the Gita is about it starts with a horrible and treacherous thing. But that has to be able to exist for the full freedom that love requires. If we get hurt in this world, we are truly the martyrs of love. Because we got hurt, because this freedom allows someone else to hurt us. That's the price of love. And bhakti is about love, loving God. This I could go into for hours. I did do this quite a bit in this first book, published by Princeton University Press, Dance of Divine Love. But that's a whole other story, why I even focused a book on dance, on the rasa dance. My Harvard mentor actually gave me the topic. I was not intending to write on that at all. I called up all my God brothers and said, what do I do? I'm not supposed to write about the rasa. They said, pray and do it. Because your doctoral mentor, you're totally dependent on your doctoral mentor for getting your degree. So if he or she says, do it, then you have to do it, or you don't get your PhD. Well, it turns out later, any scholar in the world who writes on the Ras Leela, it has to come before me. I didn't know that would be the result. Because it has to be peer-reviewed, right? So I've gotten some articles or books on the Ras Leela. I told them, no, there's no good. So I'm like Shiva, the gatekeeper of the Ras Leela, in a certain peculiar way, even though Prabhupada gave me the name of a bird. Now look, I require a picture of myself with all of you because my wife doesn't believe I'm in India. She thinks I'm off somewhere vacationing. I am vacationing, but I'm vacationing with you. So, will you indulge me? Can we line up? And is the ocean that far from here?